Okay. All right, the second week then, you have this week off. Second week you go back to work. Was it the same kind of...
Yeah, normal routine. I mean, I
But
can't remember specific.
we don't know what nights she was there.
I mean, I don't recall Kaylee being gone over any nights. If any, maybe one. And the only time Casey ever told me, the only place that Kaylee would ever stay over was they were crashing at Zanny's. She never told me she was taking her to Ricardo's, never told me she was taking her anywhere else except Zanny's. And typically,
let me write that down real quick before, I'm sorry.
Anytime Kaylee ever stayed away from the house, Casey said she was with Zanny.
Okay.
And it wasn't that often that, maybe a night here or there sporadically, but she always said she was crashing at Zanny's. And that...
Now let me ask you this, with that being said, and just your interpretation as I'm going through this thing, is that because she knew Mom doesn't want her in some boyfriend's apartment staying overnight?
I don't know. I didn't even know her and Ricardo were an item. I knew that he was a friend. She talked about Ricardo as a good friend. I did not realize that they were boyfriend, girlfriend. But she had spoken of Ricardo.
Because there's one in particular that I want to get to that's a question in my mind. And this kind of feeds into what you're saying then, because it's obvious your daughter, just from talking to her friends so far, had a great deal of loyalty to your desires and when you wanted that child home. And the reason I feel that way is because one of the nights in particular...
Well, I think she should be home in her own bed.
Most grandparents and parents do. I agree with you. So Ricardo says that on the 31st of May that they stayed over there when they went to sleep. But when he woke up, Casey was still there, but the baby was gone. And what Casey told him was, you had called upset because the baby wasn't in her home bed, and she got up, brought the baby home, and then went back to Ricardo's. Because those are one of the things, bink, it's obvious that there's a chain of command there, and she's trying to adhere to it. That's what I'm getting at.
I don't remember on the 31st though.
Was it an incident like that stand out in your mind that she brought the baby home because...
Not in the morning,
No. I'm talking like during the night. No.
No, I never called Casey until it was
Never.
in the middle of the
Okay.
night, except for the 15th. When I told her she's bringing her home. And then she said, no, wait till tomorrow. I said, no. No, that doesn't stand out. Something like that I would remember.
Okay. I just have to throw it out there. These are the questions that I need to iron out with you.
No problem.
I
have this one too. You didn't.
Yeah, those are yours. We can get more.
I'm going through a bottle of water like crazy.
We can get more. Okay, thank you. The 9th.
Can we refill that first one for you so you can have one?
Here, I have a little bit in there.
Want a Mountain Dew or something?
No, water.
Because I do.
Hint, hint.
That's a good guy. Yes, now, I keep referring to this, and I'm almost embarrassed about the coloring of it. That's just how my mind works. The 9th, the week of the 9th, you go back to work, and I'm just trying to look at where I know people say you're absolutely right, Ricardo's, the 9th, he says, they stayed there, and I have to relook at his statement.
There could have been one or two nights that they said they stayed at Zanny's, because it seemed like starting in May and June it was more frequent that they crashed at Zanny's, but not more than 1 or 2 days at a time until after June 16th. Then it was a story every day. But up until that, it was no more than 1 or 2 days ever strung together. And it did seem like it was more in May.
She would call you and say that the baby's at Zanny's staying the night when I'm going to Ricardo's.
No, what she would say is, I'm going to crash it. I'm going to, Mom, I have to work late. I'm just going to leave Kaylee at Zanny's because I have to get up in the morning, and I'm going to stay at Zanny's. And that way I can go on to work. So she was going to crash at Zanny's. Casey never came home and left Kaylee anywhere else. That would have been a red flag, and she would have known. I would have been irritated as heck and would have made her go back and get her, because you don't leave someone at the babysitter's.
Well, that might play into, and you might not remember it now, but that might play into why she brought her home that night on the 31st.
Yeah, but I never have said that, but
Never?
that's what I would have done.
Okay.
I mean, she knows me well enough that I would have done that, so she might have just figured that one out herself and said that to him.
Okay, that makes sense.
I mean, it never came up that way, but Casey knew that.
Where are we at for time? I don't want to make you
Okay,
late.
well, I think we're good so far. As long as we're out of here by 11:30, and we
Okay.
got another hour and 10 minutes.
I just don't want
And I
to.
don't mind doing this at all, because that helps.
It helps us be able to focus on
Well,
dates.
see, that's what
instead
we
of-
were kind of doing with the kids, trying to figure out where.
Well, that's
we're
why
at.
when I first met with Jesse and we went over his calendar book and I realized that there was more input than just his.
Well, let me tell you, I went day by day with Jesse, and he's got a lot of discrepancies. In fact, I wrote down everything as he was talking to me, and he changed the story 2 and 3 times.
If you have something like that,
I'll bring it in the
please,
next time.
Please.
Because he swore to me it was an 18-minute conversation on June 27th that he had with Casey, that she invited him up to Fusions to cheer him up. He told me it was June 27th. And I was writing it as he's talking, and I said, "You sure June 27th? He goes, "Absolutely. It was that Friday that we went out." And I says, "Well, you talked to her for 18 minutes. Did you hear Kaylee in the background? Did you talk about Kaylee?" He goes, "Yeah, I asked her where she was, and she said she was with the babysitter at the beach." So I have that written down.
Okay.
Well, then last weekend, I don't know, these it doesn't even seem like it's 2 weeks. It seems like it's been
You
one
see
day.
why I have all these calendars?
Right, but Jesse called George and said, "I need to speak with your wife." And he says, "Well, she's busy." He goes, "Well, I got to tell her something." And he goes, "Well, tell me and I'll pass it." He goes, "I got my date wrong. It was the 24th. And about the day that Casey invited me out." Well, then he's going to the media and saying specifically that conversation that he heard Casey tell Kaylee to get off the table. Now, during the whole time when I was sitting there talking to Jesse that Saturday after all of this happened, when he was in my home, he was sure of all of his, he was sure about everything. I said, "Now, you haven't talked to Kaylee or Casey during this whole time frame?" "Absolutely not." "Are you absolutely sure?" "Absolutely not." So that was a big red flag when he changed the story going to the media that he had heard Kaylee.
On the 24th?
Yeah, or even that he had even heard Kaylee's voice, because he maintained the whole time that the babysitter had her from what Casey said, and that was not, and he believed all that. So, like I said,
Those are the reasons that,
I have like 7 pages of stuff that I asked him. You know how Lee is doing it? I did the same thing to Jesse, because he was my first person I thought of that had a motive, that could intimidate Casey enough to keep her mouth shut, and that would threaten us, because he's that type of person.
why do you say that?
Because he was in my home every day, and I got to know him. And I got to see his anger and rage, because he took it out on me one day, a couple times, while they were engaged. And from the day Kaylee was born, he was in her life, and he has stayed in her life off and on. And Casey doesn't, she gets very, like, "Stay away from him, Mom," like that kind of thing. And even if you guys watched our tape interview, I asked her specifically about people. And the only person she said don't talk to, she said, "Stay away from Jesse." And she looked frightened when she said that. So,
Let me ask you something about that incident with anger and rage. Can you tell me about that?
yes, I'll tell you exactly what it was. George and I, right after Kaylee was born, right around November or somewhere around Thanksgiving, we had some issues. And about the 1st or 2nd week of December, he and I separated for a while. We were separated until June. And this was before Kaylee's first birthday. Kaylee was born in August, so this is what, so 2005. It was somewhere after Jesse and Casey had gotten engaged, so it was sometime after January, because they got engaged on New Year's Day. He proposed to her New Year's Eve. And so it had to be maybe probably...
Is that a happy time for you or no? About as far as that engagement? I'm just trying to get a feel for what...
It was... I could tell Jesse really cared because he did a paternity test that first week. Jesse's idea to do the paternity test was very disappointed that Kaylee wasn't his, and blah blah blah. Jesse didn't want to believe that it was his baby, but I could tell the first night after meeting him, he came back, and I came back up to see Casey and the baby because we had been there all night long. Jesse had gotten cleaned up. I came back to visit, and they looked like a family.